It was Friday, the 28th of February 1975. Rush hour in London meant crowded platforms, busy trains, and people hurrying to their offices. On the Northern City Line, the 8:38 a.m. service from Drayton Park set off as usual. The six-carriage train carried around 300 passengers, clerks, shop assistants, students, and secretaries. Many had their morning newspapers, others clutched briefcases or chatted quietly. Nothing about the journey suggested that it would end in tragedy. Moorgate was the terminus of the line. Trains always slowed well before entering the station, rolling gently to a stop at the buffers. That morning, as the train approached, those waiting on a platform noticed something strange. The carriage lights were still bright, the motors still humming, and there was no sound of braking. Instead of slowing down, the train seemed to be gathering speed. Some witnesses thought perhaps the driver had misjudged the stop, but within seconds it became clear that something was very wrong. At exactly 8:46 a.m., the train thundered past the platform at around 35 miles per hour. It smashed straight through the sand drag and into the solid concrete wall at the tunnel end. The impact was catastrophic. The front carriage was crushed to less than half its original length. The second carriage rolled up over the first, while the third was violently twisted behind. The sound of the collision echoed through the underground. Dust, smoke, fragments of brick and steel filled with the tunnels. For many in the front cars, survival was impossible. The crash left a scene of devastation. In the leading carriages, passengers were trapped in mangled steel, almost no space to move. Some survivors cried out for help, while others sat stunned in silence. Further back in the train, people stumbled onto the platform, bleeding and dazed, trying to make sense of what had happened. On the surface, London carried on as normal, unaware of one of the city's worst transport disasters had just taken place below ground. Within minutes, police, ambulances crews, and the London Fire Brigade arrived. The wreck lay more than 70 metres inside a narrow tunnel. Beyond the station, rescuers had to crawl through tiny gaps using hand tools and torches. The conditions were stifling, choking dust, poor light, twisted wreckage blocking every approach. Became very clear that this would be one of the most difficult rescue operations in the city's history. For more than 12 hours, crews worked tirelessly. Doctors were allowed into the wreck to treat survivors where they lay. Firefighters used cutting gear, but each movement risked making the wreckage shift. Progress was very painful and slow. The cramped space meant rescuers could only do work at a time. Many described later as it's working inside a giant metal press where every inch of room was a struggle, but slowly, survivor after survivor was pulled free. For some, it was too late. For others, those moments underground meant the difference between life and death. By the time the last body was brought out, the scale of the disaster was clear. 43 people had lost their lives and more than 70 injured. The Moorgate crash became the worst peacetime accident in the history of London Underground. For days afterwards, the newspapers carried images of the mangled train. Public reacted with shock and sorrow. Families waited outside hospitals for news. Many learned slowly what would happen to their loved ones that morning. Attention soon turned to why the crash had happened. Was it a mechanical failure? The train was tested and found to be in good order. The brakes worked perfectly and the track was sound. Was it the driver error? The driver, 56-year-old Leslie Newson, had not applied the brakes at all. He left no warning, no attempts to slow the train. A medical examination suggested no heart attack, no stroke, no sign of alcohol or drugs. To this day, the reason he drove into the wall at full speed remains one of London's great transport mysteries. Though the cause was never solved, the disaster forced big changes. The London Underground introduced new safety systems, including automatic train protection, which can stop a train if a driver fails to act. Emergency access routes were improved, and special rescue training was introduced for underground crashes. These changes meant that the lessons of Moorgate would protect future generations of passengers. Today, thousands of commuters still pass through Moorgate Station every day. Most walk past without even knowing what happened in 1975, but for families who lost loved ones, the tragedy had never been forgotten. A memorial plaque inside the station lists the names of the 43 who died. It is a simple, quiet reminder of one of London's darkest mornings and of the lives cut short in a disaster that changed the London Underground forever.